But Carlos, first of all, tell us a little bit about the thread, the theme that you've sort of envisioned and working together with our musicians that all of you have envisioned will sort of animate and drive next season.
Well, there's actually several themes, but we've pinpointed three that kind of encompass what we want to communicate. And in many ways, I think that everyone who has gone through this directly and indirectly has a heroic side. People who have been victims, people who have helped, people who have, so many heroes. The heroes in this case are not like the military heroes that sometimes are obvious, but the heroes are everywhere. Somebody who takes care of sick people is a hero. Somebody who designs the vial that uses the vaccine is a hero. The volunteer who's working in a vaccination center is a hero. So there's so many things to celebrate, and music has so many messages that are so subtle to celebrate them, that one of the central themes is heroes. And by this, I don't mean heroes in the sense of saying, yes, we won, a game or the war, or we beat the pandemic. No, it's a quieter and deeper level of heroism. Then there's a second, which is, I think that one of the hardest things about this pandemic is that moment that we probably all face, where we say, okay, are my dreams gone forever? Will I be able to dream a future? And I think we're turning that corner, and that music will help us dream a new future, pave a new future. So that's the second theme. Is first is heroes, second is dreamers. We benefit from people's dreams. The only reason why the vaccine was so fast to develop is that it had been a dream of people from kind of a decade ago. So it's been developed for all these years. And without that dream, we wouldn't have this hope. Or without the dream of Steve Jobs, we wouldn't have Apple. Without, et cetera, et cetera. You get my point. Well, Beethoven was a dreamer, Mozart was a dreamer, Copland was a dreamer, Courtney is a dreamer. So music is really a way to imagine a future and dream of a future. And you can find so many examples of this, that we kind of found that second message, dreamers. And the third one is the trailblazers idea, that that you can also use the example of these heroes who developed the vaccine, or who are, I don't know who came up with Zoom, but that's another trailblazer. And so many things. So in music, trailblazers are really people who kind of invent a new thing and make us completely think of in a different way. If you look at Stravinsky, he was a trailblazer. Mozart, Beethoven, Bernstein, Gershwin. It's okay. Somebody had to write Rhapsody in Blue. That's a trailblazing piece. Just to put a piano together playing jazz with an orchestra, that's a trailblazing piece. Yeah. And so those three are overarching themes: heroes, dreamers, and trailblazers. But I don't want this to be seen as a purely musical thing where, we're going to play, okay, Symphonie Fantastique or Beethoven Eroica, pieces that really kind of are central and obvious. No. Some of this is very quiet and very intimate. Yeah. And very very based on each human being's experience.
Yeah.
Because we know how difficult this has been from a individual experience as well as collective. So,
Yeah.
we want to provide, and we know we can, that hope, that relief, that happiness, that mourning that only music can provide.
Yeah.
And really only live music can provide. So little by little, we'll be able to reach more people. And, Yo-Yo sent me his video that then circulated online about him playing in a vaccination center on the cello. And he said, I had not planned this. You can imagine that vaccination center, if they would have been told Yo-Yo's going to come play his cello, they would have had press, they would have had, just imagine how much negotiation we would have had to do with their manager in order to do that. Well, no, he just said, okay, how can I thank these volunteers? He found out that 80% of the people in that vaccination center in the Berkshires, Massachusetts, were volunteers. And he had no way of thanking them. So he said, oh, I'm going to go get my cello that's in the car, and I'm going to play for you. And he played Ave Maria. He played some Bach. And I thought that that's something, not necessarily to copy him, but that's something we can do. We can provide that hope for people who have been sad, for people who have lost a loved one. So all of this is kind of encompassed into these three themes. And I think that, initially I was saying, okay, well, will this limit what we can do? And actually we could do 18 seasons of this. So it's a great overarching theme, I think.
Well, the unspoken part of this, I know it's been part of many of our conversations and planning meetings with the musicians and the offices, is we want the focus to be on the audience. We want the focus to be in the community. It's really putting them in the center of the experience, and that becomes a very liberating idea. And to put some meat on the bone of what this might actually look like for our subscribers and patrons and single ticket buyers, I know are very curious. I think how we're setting up the start of the season, so we're ready to tell everyone a little bit how the season is going to open. This as in microcosm gives you a sense of what you can expect over the course of the year, because it's going to lean into the three sort of channels or avenues through which one can experience the LPO. In September, we're going to start with a digital festival. We're going to be releasing a number of works through the month of September, leading up to mid-October, when we will return to the Orpheum and inviting those larger audiences back for the first time into the Orpheum with a series of live concerts in mid-October. And then the next week, returning to some of our museum partners to go into the more intimate zone. So digital, Orpheum, museums, that sort of tripartite structure will be part of the season, and it's going to be there in those first 3 weeks. And Carlos, tell us a little bit about some of the repertoire that we're going to hear during those first 3 weeks of digital, Orpheum, and museums.
Well, the difficult thing is to see what I should say, because there's so many plans that I could take very long. But I think that what most people want to know is when we will be back live in the Orpheum. Okay, so I'm just reading people's minds, and this is what I get, and I think this is what we're all dreaming about. And I think most likely that will happen in October, and that it will happen in a way that assures that everyone who wants to be there will be there, and everyone will be safe. So if we need to do the same program many times, we'll do the same program many times, but we won't leave anyone without being able to come.
Yeah. So we can spread out the audience.
We'll spread out the audience. We'll everything we've done uses an approach that is best practices. Okay, so what's the best practice to space a wind player from a string player? Well, we've been told that it's separating so much and putting that, so that's what we do. Same thing with the audience. We already are learning from other countries, other cities, from maybe some sporting events and stuff like that that have had safe experiences, and that's how we will come back. And we've chosen a work that is absolutely perfect to come back, which is the Beethoven Violin Concerto. So the Beethoven got shortchanged for once in his post-life life. Beethoven was the shortchanged. Why? Because last year there were so many celebrations for Beethoven that were cut short. We chose Beethoven's Violin Concerto with a young American violinist with whom I toured Mexico 2 years ago. Her name is Aubrey Alverson, and she is already making a huge name of herself, and she will. You know, we've had great history of presenting people who become very famous a few months after we present them. She is undoubtedly going to be one of those, and she's going to play Beethoven Violin Concerto. On that same program, I think we're going to do a Brahms symphony. And the problem we're having is we don't know which one, because we love all four. But Beethoven and Brahms, along with something new, something short and new, I think will be a great way to start. I think most likely our concerts initially won't have an intermission. I've been attending. I just attended a string quartet concert that was amazing, and we were told from the beginning that there was going to be no intermission, and I think everyone was relieved, in the sense that yes, intermissions sometimes are necessary, but sometimes they cut the narrative of the music. So I think we'll be designing initially programs that have a narrative and that have a length that's long enough to be meaningful, but that's not warranting the necessity of an intermission. Then, you know, for the digital, there's an incredible array of magnificent pieces that focus on the virtuosity of the orchestra. One thing that we've learned over this time, because we've had to reduce the size of the orchestra and we had to do so many individual, you know, soloistic pieces, and we've learned to kind of appreciate the individual virtuosity of the musicians and their involvement in the LPOs. So we've found pieces like Ginastera, Variaciones Concertantes, that's like a concerto for orchestra where everyone has a solo. We've also identified things like Peter and the Wolf, which is a great way to show orchestral virtuosity. And if I may say, it's a piece that, yes, is written for family concerts, but it just as well has a place anywhere in the repertoire. And then there's a whole list of new works by composers. I'm not going to start listing them because I'm going to get into trouble, but there's so many different things that will be part of this digital experience that I think will make the center of the beginning of the season the ability of the orchestra and also the ability of individual musicians. Aubrey, who is one of our guest artists of the year, will perform also on in Music at the Museum. Now, Music at the Museum could simply be part of this whole conversation. We could speak for an hour about what we want to do, because we want to establish partnerships, and we are already establishing partnerships with institutions in New Orleans in order to put together series of concerts that are carefully curated around the interests of this institution and our interests in exploring historical themes, artistic themes, so many things. And Aubrey, who is an incredible violinist, will play Soldier's Tale by Stravinsky. And Soldier's Tale is a piece of great music that kind of talks about the loneliness and the difficulty of an individual, in this case of a fiddler. And we will combine this with a piece by our own Wynton Marsalis that's called A Fiddler's Tale. And that's a New Orleans version of Soldier's Tale. And one is for a traditional chamber ensemble, and the other one is for a traditional New Orleans chamber ensemble, but written in the same configuration of musicians. So instead of, just to give an example, instead of the percussionist playing toms and drums and traditional percussion instruments, the percussionist in Fiddler's Tale plays washboard and things like that will immediately take us into a different place. And the violinist for Soldier's Tale plays, let's say, jazz from the 1910s, 20s, and now plays jazz from Wynton's side, you know. So each piece that I'm telling you kind of gives an example of what we're gonna do everywhere. One is this focus on our digital around the orchestra. The second is great masterpieces at the Orpheum along with new works. And the third is these very carefully curated museum concerts that take into account the special nature of each place. And by museum, I don't necessarily mean museum. That museum could be a school, could be a university, could be a whatever. But we explore our common interests and put together a concert. I mean, a perfect example would be to play a certain piece of music around a painting and what that painting says, and then we do a musical exploration around that theme. That's just to give example of how I'm envisioning this, because the music of the museum is a huge potential for us. So you have to think that in some of the darkest times in American history, museums such as MoMA, Museum of Modern Art in New York, took the leadership and invited musicians, invited composers such as Carlos Chavez from Mexico, such as Stravinsky, such as Copland, and said, okay, write music for us, write music so that we can play it here. And they played and they wrote music for small ensemble. Now we've been, I wouldn't say ignoring small ensemble music, but we've been considering it as an alternative to our huge pieces, because, well, if we have 70 musicians, why should we use 8? But now we are we are valuing these small pieces. Like, you know, there's an enchanting and great piece by Igor Stravinsky wrote called Dumbarton Oaks. That was written for Dumbarton Oaks in Washington. It's 8 musicians. This piece is such an amazing masterpiece. But music directors, orchestras say, okay, well, if we can play Firebird or if we can play Petrushka, why should we play Dumbarton Oaks? Well, now we kind of can't play some Firebird, at least these days. So let's play Dumbarton Oaks. And let's look at the jazz suites of Shostakovich. And then suddenly musicians and orchestras are finding that there's an incredible wealth of work. And that should also fuel new work, because people like Paul Zacher was a conductor who was also a fabulous imagining figure, a thinker. He was a wealthy man. I think he was the owner of a pharmaceutical or something company or something. And he said, okay, I'm going to put my resources and I'm going to put my interest in commissioning new works. And he commissioned works that are so, so fabulous. And that were for a handful of musicians, because this was a time when you could only put together a handful of musicians. Well, so same thing is happening today. You can really establish a parallel between 1943, 1945 and 2020, 2022.
Yeah.
And just exploring that is worth this series that's called Music in the Museum.
I mean, the beautiful thing about this year has been discovering all that we're capable of, and all the things that we thought didn't make sense or were nice ideas but weren't what we were supposed to do, now all make sense. Now all have a home. Now all have a place, and it's really an additive concept. We're not losing anything. We're adding additional layers to our personality, our programs, our identity, and what we can do and what we can be. And so what you've painted for next season, Carlos, whether at a museum or at the Orpheum or digitally, is that all of this is going to exist. We will be large, we will be small. We will focus on individual artistry. We will focus on communal experiences. We will have old and we will have new. We will have joy and we will have sorrow. All of this will exist. And I think, as you said, add up to, there'll be a narrative or a drive to each concert. I love the idea that we're not necessarily going to have an intermission, but we're going to have a real punch and a drive to each concert. But I also think there'll be a narrative over the year. And the other thing I was hoping you could share a little bit about, Carlos, is we have 2 premieres next season. The other thing we've been doing this year is we've been reconnecting with New Orleans, both popular artists, but also the classical composers, the many great classical composers and artists who make New Orleans their home. And there's 2 premieres next season. One's going to come in the middle of the season, and one's going to come at the end of the season. And I was hoping, Carlos, you could tell us a little bit more about those as well.
Well, this is interesting because most people would say that in difficult times, one retrenches and bets on the sure favorites. Okay, so that would be like the easiest thing to do is, okay, all right, let's just play Bach, Mozart, and Beethoven because that's for sure. Well, the LPO, I think, is betting on a completely different alternative, which is, okay, let's really bet on the future, and bet on the future that, first of all, is based on those great pieces, but most importantly, bets on our local talent that is impacting the world. And the 2 pieces that we're doing are by Courtney Bryan, who's our artistic advisor or artistic partner, and Jay Weigel, who is not only a great friend, but he is also someone who understands New Orleans and who has a universal appeal, because through his work, not only through his work and his knowledge of New Orleans music, of bands, of people, but also through his work with film music. He's someone who's extremely well versed in Los Angeles and Nashville, all around the United States. So each one is we're going to have a premiere by each one of these composers. And in a way, that's really the highlight of the season. Because the new piece by Courtney Bryan will feature Helga Davis. And if you don't know who Helga Davis is, Google her, Helga Davis. And you will find someone who for a long time has been doing these things that we're saying about our future. She's been doing. She curated a Music at the Museum, amazing series, multidisciplinary series at the Gardner in I think it's in Boston, right? Yeah, it's Isabella Gardner, and she combines poetry, music, visual arts, theater, everything, and she will be the person who will be, I want to say singing, but it's probably going to be more than singing, in the piece by Courtney that's called Yet Unheard. Is that right?
Yeah, Yet Unheard.
Yet Unheard. So perfect name. It's Yet Unheard, and whoever goes will make that the wrong name, because once it's heard, it will have been heard, right? Well, but I think that that kind of name is interesting, because every time you will perform a piece, it's like a world premiere. And especially a piece like I imagine, or like I know will be Courtney's, because Courtney involves so much of freedom around her work. I was able to play a piece of hers that included improvisation. I think half of the piece was not written. So in that sense, you could attend every performance of a piece and it's completely new. So that's a major cornerstone of our season. The other is a new piece by Jay Weigel that will most likely end our season. It will be our final concert of the season, along with Stravinsky Firebird, which Stravinsky Firebird is one of the pieces that the Louisiana Philharmonic performed in its first concert under that new Louisiana Philharmonic name. So it's also symbolic to place Firebird there. And Jay's piece, which has yet to have a name, is something that I've been imagining for the last 2, 3, 4 years. Ever since I met Jay, I said, Jay, you need to write a piece that gives this orchestra a chance to shine in a New Orleans way, but that's not postcard, okay? And I think everyone understands. I mean, I'm from a country where that's completely misunderstood around the world, around happiness and sombreros and things like that. So New Orleans suffers from a little bit of the same thing. New Orleans is much more than Mardi Gras and much more than food. And so Jay will explore these avenues, and it most likely will be a piece that includes a very well-known one, or maybe two, I don't know, but most likely one very well-known guest artist that will have an improvisational role. I mean, there will be music written, but that role will make the piece completely different from one day to the other. And I don't want to give away the name of the guest, because it's a major surprise, but it's a major new step for us. It's a major new step, because it will probably involve the orchestra improvising. It will probably involve the orchestra interacting with a guest artist in a new and different way. But my dream of that piece is that Jay will write a piece that we can tour with, or that we can record, and that we can say, okay, this is something that we all know what it means. Okay, it will probably have a brass band movement that that you can already know what it says, and hopefully, I guess my dream is to have a piece that has that message, and that has the depth and the length that we can really sink our teeth in. Most of the times we've done premieres or new works. We tell composers, okay, I need you to limit the size of your piece to 10 minutes, or sometimes we say 8 minutes or 12 minutes, because after that I need to play Tchaikovsky Piano Concerto and then Beethoven 5 or something. So people, administrators and musicians, they say, okay, Beethoven 5, 30 minutes, Tchaikovsky 30 minutes. So then, well, you got 10 minutes left. Okay, that's what you need, 10 minutes. And your orchestration is da, 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 so. And here we're taking completely the different approach. We're saying to Jay, okay, Jay, go crazy. I can't compose a note, but if I were a composer, I would love this situation, okay, of having an orchestra tell me, hey, If you write a 40-minute piece, we'll play it. If you write a piece that includes X, we'll use X. If you write a piece that includes a marching band or whatever, we'll use it. And that's what we're giving Jay. And I think Jay is taking this as a major opportunity, but I am taking it as a more major opportunity, because these partnerships, the partnership with Courtney, the partnership with Jay, again, is a way to look to the future. And I'm giving you these two names, two people that are well known in New Orleans, but we're also establishing partnerships in a different level with all kinds of people, with partnerships for schools, partnerships for everything. And this is just the most vocal and visual partnership. But, you know, you and I, Scott, have read so much about what League of American Orchestras is doing, what individual orchestras are doing. And some orchestras are just now thinking about these things and say, oh, maybe we'll do this, maybe we'll do this. Yet the LPO has been doing this since September or October.
We're already the future. I mean, I believe this is one of the most active and creative and imaginative orchestras in the country right now. And the thing I've learned about New Orleans is what makes this city great is that people don't say no. If you're cooking a new dish and someone says, why don't you put some of this in there? Sure, let's give it a try. If you're having a jam session and someone says, hey, can I take a ride? Someone says, sure. You know, if you're, whatever the thing is you're doing in New Orleans, you don't say no. And as the orchestra, we're trying to have that same spirit. So just like you said, you know, Jay, Courtney, whoever it is, they want to throw X into the mix. Let's give it a try, because that's who we are and that's what we're about. Carlos, you said a few minutes ago, you said something that stuck with me. You said there's three elements to great music. There's the composer, there's the performer, and there's the audience. And maybe I can be so bold as to suggest that it's that audience first and foremost that really makes it special. And so for our audience who's listening, we say thank you, first of all, for spending time with us, for hearing about the new season, for being with us on this journey this year and continue to support and sustain us and give us your feedback and be there to receive the music and give it life. And as we head into next season, all of our subscribers, if you haven't yet, any day now, you'll get a letter in the mail that starts to lay out the plan for next season. And as you've heard, we don't have all the details yet. Obviously, there are some logistical constraints, and we're planning a little bit differently than we normally do, because we want to make sure this all works and we can be safe and smart and be there for you. But nonetheless, we're hoping that you, our subscribers, our audience members, will believe in us enough, will believe in what you just heard from Carlos, will believe in these ideas, and just believe in the virtuosity of the LPO musicians to put down a deposit on the new season, because you know that whatever we deliver to you in the end, you've heard a few tastes today, but whatever delivered to you is going to be exhilarating and energetic and inspiring and meaningful, and it's going to be worth being there. So you'll have the chance to put in that deposit to sustain us and help us plan with confidence for the future. And then in about 6 weeks to 8 weeks, we're going to be coming out to you with even more information and more details. And as things open up, as restrictions are clarified, as adaptations are made, we'll share more and more with you so that you can be a full part of what's going to be an amazing season of Orpheum productions, that you'll be there live in person, sitting in your seat, music at the museums, intimate, special, another side, and a continuing digital face to the LPO, so you can connect at home on your own schedule if you're on vacation, or if there's a week where you just don't feel safe or right coming to the concert hall, we've got you covered in many means imaginable. So we want to thank you for everything that you do. Thank you for tuning in. Keep reaching out to us and share those ideas. And Carlos, thanks so much. We're going to see you again back in New Orleans in just a couple of weeks, and we're going to make even more beautiful music.
Well, thank you, Scott, very much. I value all your work and all the work that the administration puts in. It's an incredible amount of work. And I want to reinforce what you just said to our supporters. Thank you. And we rely on you, on your presence first, and on your support, moral and financial, at this moment more than ever. I think the orchestra has proven that it's there for New Orleans. It's proving it once and another. So Katrina on. So we're there. and we're doing well. So help us make all these dreams realities very soon.
Well said. Thank you, Carlos, and thank you everyone for tuning in. Take care.
Thank you. Take care.